So yeah, let's start with questions. Anybody have any questions about the properties you came through? Anything you wanted to dive a bit deeper in? No, we were just what? How much would they rent for? Let's go into the numbers then. So sorry, here, give me one first. So we have a whole team that does analysis. I was speaking to some of you guys about this, but the way our process works is we start with everything that's available, both MLS, both offline. We run it through our high-level analysis, which is like, is it in gentrifying neighborhoods? Is it close to public transit? Does it hit some of the things that we're looking for, like basement walkouts, maybe ceiling heights? We do all of that first, and then after that, we have a much smaller group of properties that we start deeper analysis on.
No, I don't know where to put this.
So generally, we don't run financials like this until after we see a property. And the reason is we can get to a property many times, and we won't hold true. Right? We get there and it doesn't look nearly.
Presley is saying.
So we do the financial analysis not before, but after seeing the property. Big reason is we can get into a place and be like, you know what? Square footage here is nothing like what we thought it was going to be. Layouts are a lot worse. Finish is not as good, or maybe it's better. It says laneway suite potential, but when we get there, we know that there's no potential there. So the quickest eliminator is actually going to the property. Now, I wish it was the other way around. It's a hell of a lot less work for us. And it is more commitment from a client. But the best way is to get to, let's say, 70%, 75%, go and see the property, eliminate, and then do a financial analysis with us. So, a bit of a long-winded way of saying we have some of the high-level financials here. Now, what we have on this on the first page here with the current debrief are the current financials. So we did nothing to the property, what it would rent out for today, right? And it's not too bad, right, in terms of what you get in rent. But the big challenge is the rent to this price, what it's worth at market value, you'll be quite cash flow negative. So this is really meant for not straight investment, but somebody that was looking for like a house hack, condo or alternative, right?
Does everyone know what a house hack is? It's a sexy term that they I don't know, maybe a millennial came up with it or something. But it's a sexy term for a concept that's been around for a very, very long time. Basically, multiple units under one roof in one property. You live in one unit, you rent out the rest. And so, house hacking is not always necessarily the best financial performer, but it might be more suitable for your own living situation. Right?
And
So
it's a heck of a lot better than just buying a condo and living in it. That's going to be 100% expense. At least here you're getting some money back, some supplementation of your mortgage.
yeah, exactly. And so there's a lot of variation to that. So per sight unseen, we never saw the property. We thought maybe this has the potential for a house hack or a polar occupied scenario as a possible or an alternative to being able to afford real estate. So there's a couple different variations to this. This is one example of a more of an entry-level type of house hack. It's a low $1 there's examples of house hacks in high 1 million to low 2 million as well. Really nice properties. Like we're talking second, third floor, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,000, 1,100, 1,200 square feet, walkout patio, like nicer than most condos. Those exist too. And then you can rent it the main floor, rent it the basement. In this case, a little more modest. The price tag also is much smaller. And price tag of what?
We think 115. I think that's this one here.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, I think around 115 maybe.
So rents.
So one of the things that we did is we put what we thought, right, based on our knowledge of the market. We put what we thought we see in rents, sight unseen, and then the idea was you give you the experience of what we do with our clients, adjust those numbers after you see the place. I think we're very close though. Like the 1,400 for the basement is a real number. That's what they're getting right now, like for that basement. 21.
No, they're getting 11.
Oh, sorry, 11. Mark. 11 currently. Market would be 14 for that basement. The main floor and the top floor we have at both 2,100. I think it's similar, but maybe a little switch because the main unit's a lot bigger, right, than the top unit. So you're probably getting closer to 2,000 upstairs. It's a little small. Finish is maybe not as nice, but you know, with the hot rental market that we have right now, maybe you could push it to 21. But I think the downstairs being bigger, you should be able to get 2,200, 2,300 for downstairs. You get that extension on the back, which makes it a little larger.
And it has that feature of the slanted floors.
Yes.
Proper grading.
Yeah. That's right. So when it's raining inside the house.
For this home, are the basement tenants leaving when the house is sold, or?
I think this particular home, they're looking for somebody.
Here, I don't know if you can hear you.
Oh, for the basement, tenant, I think one thing that they're looking for is acquisition of tenant. Continuing on with the green.
So you would, in that case, then, we would be stuck at 1,100 over the 14 that we, if it was a vacant thing?
Yeah. And I think that depends on the tenant. It's basically
But it's a good question because we think that there's more upside potential, right? We think that probably 1,400, only 1,100. So, what are our options? So, what's something we could do at let's say at the acquisition phase? What's something that we could do? What's something we could ask for? The increase is going to be a little more difficult because of landlord-tenant laws, right? Everything we do, we want to make sure we're staying above board. Tim?
I was going to say vacant possession.
Vacant possession. We could conceivably put a clause for vacant possession in the offer.
But you still run into the issue of owner-occupied areas. You're not asking them to do it.
So,
Yeah.
we ask for vacant possession and we put that on the seller. We put on the seller. How the seller deals with it, they can cash their keys or whatever. They can negotiate with the tenant, whatever we want to make sure that whatever we're doing is above board. Maybe they've already had that conversation with the tenant, and maybe the tenant's intention is to leave already, and maybe they're not. Maybe they don't have to do very much. Maybe there's lots of different scenarios that could play out. But for example, we can put a vacant possession clause in there. We can also put penalties in there if the seller doesn't deliver. We can also put extension, basically, we have the right to extend closing because they haven't delivered us vacant possession quite yet. There's lots that we can do to negotiate. And this is really coming down to the difference between regular, I was going to use dumbass, but I don't want to use the word dumbass. Okay, I'm going to use the word dumbass. Regular dumbass realtor versus investor-focused realtor who knows how to navigate these situations, knows what to ask for, knows how to negotiate this with the seller, knows to ask for things that might be maybe no skin off of the seller's back, but means a lot to us. And vice versa, no skin off our back, and we're happy to give to the seller. Negotiating those things, it's not always about price. It obviously heavily predicated upon price, but not always. We want to understand what's important to the seller and negotiate those things. That's in an ideal situation where you can negotiate with the seller. Unfortunately, all you people are too late, and we have now entered back into a seller's market and with multiple offers. So some of these opportunities start going off the table. But this is more for education of what's possible than it is about how to operate in this particular instance.
We're in a bit of a strange market right now, where we are in between some places having 20, 30 offers on them on an offer night, and some places sitting on the market for months. So there is some very limited ability still to negotiate, but I don't see that sticking around for much longer.
So since that basement unit is not legal, we didn't have a chance to walk through. One of the things you absolutely could do is try to get it legalized which depending on why it's not legal may require vacant possession as well, right? Like that's something that you could look into.
I mean, maybe you call the city bylaw officer on your own property.
I do that, like if I buy a place and it has fire problems, I want to call them and report it myself rather than somebody else reporting it.
So, yeah, there's lots of different ways you can operate in situations like this. So, you know, speaking of legal, so who still got their activity sheet with them? How many people read it or did anything with it? Very few hands. So I wasted ink for no reason. But number one here, we talked about this a little bit, and I know on our tour with Wilson went through it. I don't know if you guys went through it. What does legal actually mean?
Yeah.
Is that something you'd like to learn a little bit about?
Yes.
We'll do a very, very quick overview right now. So, legal, there's at least 4 different aspects to legality, right? Legal's not really the greatest word to use. Because you got zoning, right? People think, oh, it's legally zoned. Zoning is actually the wrong word to use. Zoning is the city's method, and it's what the city uses to influence development of a particular area of the city. That's what a zone is. That's what zoning is. Right? Then there's, on here, MPAC assessments. Sometimes if we look up MPAC, GeoWarehouse, and Land Registry, they'll say duplex, or 2 self-contained units, or 3 self-contained units. Great. I think there was Tyler and K-Fed who came through our tour, and they were talking about how certain lenders will look at MPAC status and will lend based upon the MPAC status. So if it says 3 self-contained units, hell, we'll let you use all 3 rents, for example, right? Certain lenders. We know, as sophisticated investor realtors and as sophisticated investors, we know that MPAC is not the be-all and end-all, though, right? Then there's Ontario Building Code, there's Fire Code, and there's legal status with the city. Legal status with the city is actually what you're looking for. Legal status, registered status with the city. How do you look for those things? You can essentially get, you look at the building permits that were issued for that, or if there's grandfather status. Anyway, won't get it too detailed into it, but legal status can be a very complicated topic. Just know that if you see something on a listing and they say MPAC duplex, that doesn't necessarily mean it's legal. That's essentially what I want to leave you with. And work with someone who knows the difference between all the things I just talked about.
Nope.
Is there anything else the team wants to add? Wilson, I know Chris is still here. Where is he? Chris, Alicon, is there anything you guys want to add? Anything? No? Is this helpful stuff?
Any other questions about the property? For which one?
The question was how much of renovation?
So for Perth, I don't think I would renovate it. First of all, I probably would buy it. Right? It doesn't hit all the things that I want. If I were to buy it, I wouldn't renovate it because it's 80% of the way there, right? So for me, the only what makes sense in acquisition is a price that I could use those current kind of rents and basically have it turned down. But at market value of like 115, 1.2, at these rents, I wouldn't buy the place, and I wouldn't renovate it because the finishes are good enough, and they're not at a state yet where I'm getting a discount on the current finish that I can gut it and then renovate.
And then the laneway speed potential on this was
None.
So we thought it had laneway speed potential. We got a report, which we typically do with our clients prior to submitting an offer, and the laneway speed report came back not favorable.
Yeah. So
reasons, like high level for one reason.
too far. So if you don't know, basically you have to be a minimum of 90 meters from a fire hydrant, and that's broken up into a 45 plus 45 rule. So 45 for the first hose to a pump truck with another 45. So 90 meters total. This place was like 217. because they didn't have enough side setback to go to the side. So you have to go all the way around the lane and then.
Do you want to talk about side setback for a second?
Yeah. So all emergency services require 90 centimeters unencumbered to get to a dwelling unit. That statement covers what you need to get to anywhere within a dwelling unit. What I mean by that is, let's say the entrance to my laneway suite is through the side of the house. I must have 90 centimeters at the side of my house to get to the back. If my main entrance to my main unit is at the back of the house, I need 90 centimeters unencumbered to get to that entrance. If the staircase within my house to get to the top unit, I need my staircase to be 90 centimeters wide. So that 90 centimeters is kind of like the golden rule for all movement to units that must be met.
Did you say staircase on the outside then?
If it's an interior stair, that's a common stair, and I've got a unit at the top, if it's not grandfathered in, it has to be 90 centimeters wide. 90 centimeters wide. So basically, that's the width of a firefighter and all, or emergency services with all their equipment. Right? That's what
What about the washroom on this section floor? Because it does have, it's brick, it's raw brick. Does that impact, with all the humidity in the washroom, does that humidity impact the brick?
no. So brick is.
Did everyone hear the question?
No idea.
It's basically on the first floor washroom.
Yeah, first floor.
First floor washroom at the first property, exposed brick. It was really nice, right? It's a feature. But
So in terms of humidity problems, that's not the issue. Brick is actually quite good at managing moisture. The bigger problem is actually noise transfer. So a lot of times you see like this place here, you have exposed brick. But what they've had to do is fill in all the holes using a process called tuck pointing to make sure there's no air gaps. Sound travels through air. So if you have a hole in the brick, you will be hearing your neighbors. So the bigger issue with exposed brick is it has to be sealed, right? So no holes for sound transfer and no holes for fire safety, right? If there's holes in there, then you get fire.
what was odd about that
How would you like to cook
is
your eggs cooked?
typically you
Scrambled,
see
like
exposed
the
brick
middle.
on an internal party wall, not an
potatoes?
exterior wall,
Yeah.
right?
Because then there's no insulation.
There's no insulation. That bathroom's gonna be cold as shit,
Yeah.
right? Like it's
It's a double brick design, and literally it's an exterior brick that you have, an air gap, and then another brick wall. There's no insulation, there's just an air gap. So, and the exterior wall is meant to breathe, so it's got holes in it designed, so air can circulate. So you have cold air right up against that wall. That will be a very cold bathroom.
a very specific issue with that very specific property. Let's pound through the rest of it. So there's there's an offer date on the property. We're probably going to track it to see what it actually eventually sells for. So if that's of interest to you, reach out to a team member and we'll make sure that we communicate some of this to you. It doesn't have quite the same potential we thought it did because of the laneway suites, because of the size of the house. The main floor really exhibited foundation issues. So overall, there are some red flags and some question marks with regards to that. So was it? But the point being though, we don't always see good stuff. Actually, the number of good investable properties out there is like 5% at best. So we go through a lot of crap like this. This is real. This is what we do. We have to go through, we have to sift through a lot of crappy properties. Other people might buy them, that's fine. We don't want it necessarily. So we want to find the good ones, the ones that are worth investing in. That makes sense?
You're gonna go through your criteria as to why that was a miss. You said that you like check the boxes for you.
There's like 150 things.
So at a high level,
Same time.
Perk doesn't work primarily because the rents aren't enough.
Take, I
That's
don't
one
think
thing.
I'm
Two, I don't have the potential to get it there.
Probably take another 20 minutes.
So if it was like
Okay.
He's working on it, so it shouldn't be too long. He's pretty quick.
larger layout,
How would you like it
getting
cooked?
lower rents, but I know that I'm renovating.
AAA primer,
back up.
grind in
Sure.
the house, no filler.
The-
Just pure steak.
the higher end
Cook it however you want.
potential's there.
Medium rare.
Medium rare? Your fries?
What would you recommend on the cook for the burger? I feel like medium rare might be.
I always get medium rare myself, but I mean, it's up to you.
I'll try medium rare.
You got it cooked how you get my steak cooked.
That's expensive.
And can I get a
And I can't get layaway speed.
And a which?
So now I
Flying
get
luncheon?
additional
Yep.
revenue from that. So because I'm already kind of close to its highest and best use, and market value is like 1.5, 1.2, it's not a great straight investment. Now, I would consider it if I was living there, right? Because if I buy a $700,000 condo, $50,000 condo, all my money's going towards mortgage and utility maintenance fees. Versus if I have that property, I'm getting 3,500 in substituted mortgage, right? So my overall cost is going to be lower, and I've got a house now in the city, right?
So that's why this is where it becomes really important to. This is one of the services we offer through advisory, because really, it really depends on you and your situation, right? There is no one-size-fits-all investment. There's a lot of different variations in business models. There's a lot of variation in people's situations. There might be reasons that this actually works for you, and there might be lots of reasons why it doesn't work for you. So that's why. Well, I'm going to plug us right now. You check your sheets. You probably have a QR code. Maybe not on this one, but the activity sheet. I'll get you guys a copy of the activity sheet as well. There's a QR code. Scan the QR code. You'll have an opportunity to do a 30-minute complimentary consult with me. I'm the head of advisory, and that's where we'll kind of go through to see whether or not we can work together, whether we think we can help you, whether you think we can help you, and get a sense of where you're at, where you want to go, and help you build that plan to get there. And then we'll go through some of this stuff at that point in time. Right?
Question for you. For the, does this 3.5, which is does this location support the tenant profile? Taking into account the housing in front of the property, would that impact if you were willing to live there?
So let's repeat the question.
Yeah, basically the question is, on our handout sheet, we had question number 5 was like, with this, does this property attract your tenant profile? Short answer is yes. Short answer is we can get our tenant profile. So yes, it's good for our tenant profile. But my concern is more around the resaleability of the property. The housing project that's across the street is much like, I don't know, like a utility, like a high-powered line. Some people won't like it. And what that means on purchase is like you'll usually be able to get a bit of a discount because there's maybe something that some people don't see as desirable across the street. But that will also mean on sale you're going to get a bit less of a discount. In terms of rentability, it won't make a huge impact. It'll make a little bit of an impact. I liken it to detached versus semi-detached. There's actually almost zero difference in terms of rents when you're renting out a unit. That's for a house that's semi-detached and a house that's fully detached. You get almost no premium renting out a unit within a detached home. So it's similar in that vein. You're not going to get a huge impact to your rental profile, and that's like a nice community housing development. There are some that are much rougher, like when Regent Park was being redone. It was pretty rough. Regent Park was pretty rough, and that would have had more of an impact. It was like right across the street from Regent Park. But that's newer. It's nicer, so it won't have as much.
That's reflected in it's reflected in the price, right? If I was across the street from the community housing or that close to transit and sound transmission because of the GO train and stuff like that, and I was paying 1.8 million, then I'm rethinking this. But the reality is, like, as much as it's ridiculous to say a $1 million house is the kind of entry level, that's the reality. This is an entry level type of property. And as a result, you get some of these things along with it. It could be generally speaking, if you look at an investment heat map that we've created, this falls squarely within what we consider to be an investable neighborhood. But street by street, there's going to be little variances and little things that are going to affect it. So you're astutely pointing out the fact that there is something there that is a less than desirable feature. Does it detract from the business model completely? Does it mean that the business model cannot proceed? No, that's not what it means. Okay, good question. Yes.
Housing across the street impacts value on acquisition. Does it also have the same impact on rental ability as well, or is it one way more heavier? Like price would be a lot more reduced, rent will generally be the same.
Well, I think that's what
with a slight twist, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
So it has more of an impact on acquisition and sale than rental. So,
Or the type of
so I'm jumping ahead here, but maybe your mind is like, actually, is that better?
not looking for
Right?
something.
Getting a discount on the property, but I'm
You're
getting
like
similar
young,
rents.
you don't know
The
anything.
answer is
And they're gonna be out of there.
yes-ish.
Yeah.
Because we do a lot of this where we have properties where we're buying on main streets.
Like in their 20s.
So a lot of our clients are buying on like,
Like they don't care
the
about
Lansdowne to Ossington,
And if they
some of
do
the
care,
very
they
busy
probably don't
streets in the city, because you're getting a discount on acquisition.
They don't care about
And
it.
rents are relatively similar, as long as you don't have a lot of sound coming into that. So it is, yes, it can make sense. That's it.
it's a really good point. And so, for example, if you're looking at if you want a cheaper property, like this is actually a property that's on a side street. But actually, at this price point, we're normally finding properties on main streets, actually, right? But rents don't actually drop too much in lockstep with the property acquisition price. So it can make actually better financial sense in certain regards. Absolutely.
A tenant is not looking at this as forever. Well, you're not looking at a tenant profile, hopefully, that's looking at this forever, right? They're kind of younger, so they're looking at, is this a place that can live for the next year or two, right? So it doesn't have to be super perfect, but there are certain things like finish levels, that is something that I'd say is just as important as the immediate location.
Are we good moving on to the next one? Any questions about? Oh, sorry.
For when you're doing renovations, is there sometimes a focus on the trade-off between rental income, I guess, potential increase to when you're selling the property? Like,
Yeah.
how do you guys deal with that trade-off?
We don't use.
Repeat the question.
So let me paraphrase here. At what level should you be renovating for rental versus ARV, essentially, right? And that will actually depend on the property itself and the neighborhood. Sorry. Because certain neighborhoods, you'll want to renovate to a certain level. So like Perth, that we came from. If I was to do the renovation, I'm looking at like mid-grade vinyl plank. I'm looking at entry-level quartz. But I don't need to get into like fancier like ceramic backsplashes and stuff like that. Like that's good enough for that area. Beatrice, that is a primo neighborhood in the city where I can get ARVs in the 3 millions. I am not putting, $4 vinyl plank into a $3 million home. If my business case is to get a high ARV, and this is what like Matt's saying, the reaching and understanding what your investment goals are really paramount. Because we have some clients, they don't care about cash flow. They are more interested in what's their net investment, and how much of that net investment can they refinance out to go buy something else. They can handle negative $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month. That's fine. They want as many. It's a land grab for them. They want as many properties as possible, and they want capital preservation as they go from project to project. That's a different strategy. I want to make sure I'm getting high ARVs. I want to make sure I'm in the right neighborhoods, and my finish level means that to get those high ARVs. So, I always hate the it depends answer, but it really does. It has to match the property, and it has to match your investment business case.
So just if you weren't following along what Ming was saying, essentially, if you were to renovate and take a property from here to here, right? You acquired it probably with like an 80% mortgage of whatever property value, right? But then if I take it to here, I can refinance up to 80% of that property value. So actually trying to drive the property value higher through more expensive finishes might actually be one investor's strategy versus another investor's strategy is like, I just want maximum cash flow, maximum rents at the lowest possible renovation cost. And that's a different strategy altogether. Big question. Okay, can we move on to Beatrice? Anything you guys want to add? Wilson, Chris, Alikan, you guys good?
Wilson's hungry.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a quick question for you, but, so the setbacks, if you needed, let's say, the 90 centimeters, like I was looking at Beatrice, for example, I'm like, it could be 85.
Yeah.
Is that a committee of adjustment, or is that just like straight up, you can't do it?
So you can go. So technically, you can go to committee for anything, right? If it's 10, we could go to committee. The question is, how far off are we, and what does the precedence in the neighborhood allow for? So if one thing I know, because we pass this ourselves, is starting 90, but ending at 85. So it narrowed a bit as we got to the back of the property. We've actually passed that before in Little Italy. So I can say with confidence, if you're at 90 down to 85, yes. Because committee of adjustment is all based on precedent, right? Because they need to be consistent. What have they granted a variance to before? They can't, like favorites, right? So it depends. What we would do in this case, let's say it was 85. This is where it's really important to have an architect, and I mentioned before, not a pretty house architect, but a understanding the legal framework architect that knows what precedence has been established in that area. They've been to enough committee hearings to say with confidence, you know what, we can get you 85. That should be okay. But
I guess the main thing is, it's like, how do you, like, when do you walk away? What are those, like, red flags where you're like, it's not even something?
yeah. So it's a good question. You walk away when your business case hinges on it. So if I must have 90 centimeters in order to have a laneway suite, and I must have that laneway suite for this project to work, and I'm not sure, I walk away. Because that's devastating. But if it is like, if I have 90 centimeters, then I could do a dedicated rear entrance. But if that doesn't work, I could do a shared front entrance. Then maybe I don't walk away. It's not a deal breaker that time. I have some alternatives.
And the other one is the LDA. That?
Yeah. So another way of potentially getting yourself 90 centimeters. So the 90 centimeter rule applies to your property, right? Because you have full control over your property. But oftentimes we're sharing that, narrow space with the neighbor. In the past, what you need to set up is called a right-of-way. In a right-of-way, you go to committee of adjustments, you get a ruling basically saying that nobody can encumber the space between the two houses. So nobody's putting a big air conditioner there or something like that. That's the old method. That took a long time. You'd have to go to committee, you need representation at committee, and then you'd need to get a ruling and put it on title. To speed up the process and to encourage the development of laneway housing and garden suites in the city has come up with a bypass called an LDA, so a limiting distance agreement. It is essentially the same as a right-of-way, but you don't have to go to committee. Property A gets a lawyer, property B gets a lawyer, and then you work with the city's lawyer, so 3 lawyers. All sides agree not to encumber that area, and then you've established the LDA, and now you can do developments at the back. You just have all 3 lawyers agree to it. I'm oversimplifying because you do need agreement, right? You do need to make sure that your neighbor agrees to do an LDA, right? Now, in general, it is beneficial for them because it also means that they're not encumbered, right? It means that in the future they could do a laneway suite too. So there is an advantage for it to be established for them. but it is not a guarantee. Can't force somebody to do this.
How long will the LDA process take?
So it depends. It moves at the speed of lawyers. So it's gotten a lot better. Yeah, I can see the look. Cecily's been through and it was very early days at the time. At the time, there was only they didn't even know which lawyer in the city to engage to do the LDA because we did some pretty cutting edge stuff. Now it is more established. You're probably looking at about a 2 to 3 month period to get an LDA, assuming that the two lawyers on both sides are relatively quick. You're probably looking at about 2 to 3 months.
Cool. Moving on, next slide.
Beatrice, questions about Beatrice before we dive into it? Okay, let's talk about what we liked. So, things that I really liked about it, actually the condition of the property. Well, I'm not keeping any of the finishes because they're outdated. Got beige carpet in there, that kind of stuff. It's been well taken care of, right? There you can definitely see it's old, but there's a pride of ownership. There's no obvious wear and tear on the property itself, right? Somebody's taken care of that through all these years. When I see that in the visible finishes, while not a guarantee, it means that generally the systems like the HVAC, the plumbing, all those things have all been taken care of, right? So that's one thing I like quite a bit about the place. Two, the neighborhood. Little Italy is a fantastic primo investing neighborhood, which is good with having multifamily. There's a lot of multifamily precedents in and around where we are here. So I know I won't get pushback for doing multifamily. Other things I liked were the stairs. The stairs are stacked to the side. That makes, if I want to break it up into multiple units, much easier because I'm not having to deal with awkward layouts of having a stair running through the property itself. Things I didn't like. It was a touch too short. Right? I am about like 5 feet from greatness because if I had another 5 feet or 6 feet at the rear of the property, I could comfortably fit a 2-bedroom layout in there. The way it stands now, on the upstairs unit, getting 2 bedrooms in there would be quite difficult. The main floor unit, I could do it, but I'm probably talking about a really small washroom. That's the part I can't quite solve for. There wasn't a good place to keep the washroom. A couple more feet would make a huge difference on that property, either in length or in width. But length is more common to find. If I had a bit more width there, it would help too.
One of the things is that we saw how it cut back toward the end of the property. That's what affected layouts too, right? So around the kitchen area, it started cutting back and it started getting a lot more narrow. That affected layouts.
Other things I didn't quite like. So I liked that the basement had walkouts. Those are expensive. If I go hire somebody to dig out a basement walkout right now, I'm looking at $20,000, maybe $25,000 to get that work done. So having it already there, big plus.
And there's two. There's one at the front and one at the
back. So that's really nice. Gives us flexibility in our layouts. In our group, there was a question like, which one do we prefer? We prefer front. Right? Front feels more like coming into a real house. The rear, you have to sneak around to get into your end. It doesn't feel as house-like. So if you've got the choice, front, basement walkout. Is that your question?
No, the having 2 separate entrances already there, potential for 2 smaller suites.
Yes. So if the property was a touch bigger, the use case there is what we call 2 studios or 2 micro suites. Because I have access from both sides, I can have 2 studio apartments split it down the center, 2 studio apartments on each side. Turn into 4 units. But it's quite a common layout that we see, and a great way of taking advantage of the space. And where you want those micro suites is in the basement. That's going to be, your tenant profile that's looking at the smallest units tend to be pretty young, transitional. They're not staying there because they like the idea of being a small place in the basement. They're usually there for a year or so because they're between stuff, right? Maybe they just got into the city and they want to understand the neighborhood before they go and buy something. I have a smaller unit. I've had a divorcee in there who wanted to be near their kids before they found something proper. I've had people who are new to the country who have their jobs but don't really know anything about the city, so they don't know where to live yet. So they're just trying to find something cheap. Like that's the kind of tenant profile you're going to get from those micro suites. But that's a very good point. The ability to split it up into 2 units.
Did you see enough square footage there to be able to do it?
It's tight. It's very tight. Like that property, like I said, it's probably about 4 or 5 feet. If it was 4 or 5 feet longer, a lot more things could be unlocked. But as it stands now, it's a little bit too short.
Another thing I'd add with the front entrance is that rather than having it on the side or the rear, you don't have to have that 90 centimeter clearance for you to go on the side and then back for it to be
Would this one be better for that house hacking, like someone living in the first and second floor, and then renovating the basement into 1 or 2 suites, so you're getting 1 or 2 incomes?
So I guess it depends on how we define better. If we're calling better, let's say financial performance, Perth is probably going to be better because you are living in less space, right? So, assuming you take the top unit, your main and basement are going to give you some decent rents. But if you are living in, let's say, the top unit of this place, first we have to pay for renovations. And then, as it's currently standing, they can't quite do 2 basement units. They can only do a main and basement. And it's, how do I put this? In Perth, you're taking up less than a third for your own personal use. So the less you're taking for yourself, the more you're getting in rents because you're renting out more of the space. Something like Deertris, you're taking a good third chunk of the property, so there's less than devoted to income generation.
But then it's going to depend on you and your situation, right? If you are family and you want a normal single-family home with a basement helper, for example, Perth is not set up like that. I want, if I'm a normal person and I just want a nice place to live and I need a basement mortgage helper, then actually Beatrice could be the place if you're willing to go do those big renos, because hell, I've got 3-bedroom upstairs plus the bathroom. I've got main floor I can renovate, and if that's a location you want to live in, and that's the type of setup you vision for yourself, and because you have a family or because whatever reason you want to live on main and seconds, maybe you're just turning the basement into a separate unit, and maybe that's actually good enough for you. It's not going to be top financial performer, but that may not be your goal. Your goal might be, I want a nicer house in the city. I just need a little bit of rental income, maybe $1,800 or $2,000, whatever the number is, in order to help me carry my mortgage. It's really going to depend on you and your situation. Beatrice could be a perfect example for something like that if you're so interested.
And that's why I like when you're saying, like, what's better?
It's based on the
It depends on your
client,
budget.
right, and what they're looking
And that's why, like, one of my biggest pet peeves is like, what is the best investment? If somebody's coming to you and saying, like, hey, buy this because it is a best investment, like, honestly, it's bullshit because they don't know anything about your situation. They don't know anything about your goals and your capabilities. So, without all that knowledge, you can't really tell somebody what's best for them. Like, I know in this room, for example, we've got some, like, killer expert investors. There are people here with tons of development experience. There's people in here with tons of flipping experience. My advice to them will be different from somebody who's a novice investor because they bring a different skill set to the table. They bring a different network to the table. And we want to take as much advantage of, the skills that an investor is bringing to maximize their return.
What about that door height at the beginning, at the front entrance? Is that an issue at all? It seemed like it was a little low, or
I don't
I didn't walk through it.
remember.
I walked to the back and it was a hobbit door. So I mean, depending on the situation, if there's enough height, you can cut up higher and put a new door in. Right, the hobbit door in the back could have done that. I don't remember the one in the front, to be honest.
Is there any rules around that?
So there are rules. I don't know what they are. So extrapolating from my knowledge, so it should be 5'6" minimum still, right? I don't see why it would be any higher when your minimum height within the property is also 5'6". 6'5". Dyslexic. 6'5" as a minimum height, but not an architect. And I think one of the things that we are very aware of is where our knowledge limits are and where to start engaging an architect. And we use an architect for a lot of things that we do. So, and we have a good relationship, so we're able to just like send questions off. It's like, hey, is this door good enough? We've had some like very strange windows, for example, where the access to the window is like through a bit of a drywall tube, for lack of a better terms. And we were able to get our architect to verify that that was good enough for legalization. Any other questions about beer?
Considering the cap rate, this will be a better option, right? Batteries, it will be better considering the cap rate.
We had not reviewed the property. These were assumptions based upon what we knew on the listing. If we were to go back and revise now, so you're saying, I'm not as good as some of the other guys on our team at like, okay, what can I turn this into? Is there enough space for a 2-bedroom? There were assumptions built into this that you could get a 2-bedroom lower, 2-bedroom main, 2-bedroom second floor. Can we actually do that?
No. I can. So this is very typical of the process we go through. We see the listing. We're like, okay, looks like we could do this. We go to the property. Looks like we can't, right? That upstairs unit is too small, right? Too small for me to get a comfortable 2-bedroom layout there. I kind of need a minimum $850 for a comfortable 2-bedroom layout. $900 is what I'm hoping to get. I can't execute on less space, but it does get tight.
So let me ask you a question. So even so we walk up to the second floor. Some of the people I was on a tour with, again, I'm not quite as experienced in being on the construction side and dealing with layouts and stuff. But if you were to take that front bedroom as a bedroom, the back as a bedroom, and now clear all the space in between, you walk up the stairs, you got washroom, kitchen, living, in that area in between, could that be a smallish, maybe I was 650, 700 square foot, sort of 2-bedroom, still 2-bedroom, just not our
like a
ideal
tight
size.
So the answer is yes, it can be physically done. I could do a 2-bedroom there, but I wouldn't do it in that neighborhood, right? We're in a primo neighborhood here, and I'm conscious of ARVs here and what somebody who's paying $2,800 in rents for a 2-bedroom in this neighborhood is expecting. If I took this property and I moved west 2 blocks, 3 blocks, near like Lansdowne, for example, I would do it there, but not for a Little Italy property.
You're going to pay the premium here for the property, but not necessarily get it back in the rents and the returns you're looking for. So here, it's typically, if you're going to spend a little bit more, you want to spend it on a place that has the floor plates that allow you to execute upon your business model, right? And if your business model is hinging on 2-bedroom layouts and you're not getting, or good 2-bedroom layouts, you're not getting good 2-bedroom layouts, maybe it's time to move on and find a property that has slightly bigger floor plates, slightly wider, slightly longer, whatever requires.
If you want to see an example, I've called pretty close to a perfect Little Italy conversion. On our website, we did a construction tour. We've been there twice. One was in the middle of COVID, and one the walkthrough. Do you have video of that? The street score, last year, Deuce last year?
Yeah, we do.
Right, so there should be 2 videos. The property's called Deuce. And we walked through how we did a 4-plex layout there. That's what we're looking for when we're doing a big conversion. It's got quite a bit of space. It's a wider semi. We're able to get comfortably 2 units on every
2 bedroom.
2 2-bedroom, sorry, 3 2-bedroom units and 1 1-bedroom unit on the top, right? So there, quite comfortably you'd be getting 14, maybe 15K in rent, all said and done. Right?
Higher price tag, right?
Yes,
That
1.7 acquisition. That was 2 years ago. So probably like 1.9 acquisition now.
But that's again, this is going to depend on you, your capabilities, and how deep your pockets are. Right? So there's a particular investor has like that investor, that client of ours, had the deep pockets to be able to execute on something like that. Higher price tag, higher renovation budget. When 4-plex, big rents, big everything, want to do a refinance on it with an ARV close to $3 million, right?
And that's a perfect example of a property which fits that investor's business case of wanting to have maximum capital return on their investment, not cash flow return. And it's actually it's a credit to them because they have a bigger picture understanding of what really moves the needle in real estate investing isn't cash flow, right? It's what keeps your business alive. But the difference between $300 cash flow a month and increasing that by 200% and getting $600, that's not going to make a difference. Right? $300 extra dollars won't make a difference. But if you can increase your capital return, your ROI on the equity portion, even just 1 or 2%, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars in additional return.
And if they can get that money back to go do another project.
That's right.
Rinse and repeat.
We talked about this in depth on Erwin's podcast, which we recorded yesterday. There's a podcast called The Truth About Real Estate Investing. We were on it yesterday and we actually went pretty deep on this subject.
What's the name of that?
The Truth About Real Estate Investing in Canada or something. It's has everyone heard of Erwin Cito?
Yeah.
You know Erwin Cito?
We're buddies from like way back.
So he runs this podcast, and it's
in the top 50 now in the world, I think.
It's
for investing podcasts.
Yeah, pretty impressive. Anyway, he's had a big long roster of really cool people on it. So we were fortunate enough to go on it yesterday. So I don't know when it's coming out. I think Erwin's speaking at our next meetup. Put in your calendars. Is it May 17th? I was going to put it down in our handout, I forgot. May 17th is our next meetup, and I think Erwin's speaking that. Right? So put in your calendars. RSVP at the next event. Do it now. Okay, anything else about Beatrice? Over here.
I thought you were in a podcast.
I was waiting for it to pop
The
up.
question was, why is the laneway suite getting more rents than the main house? Because the laneway suite, it's nice. If you've ever been into a laneway suite, it's essentially like its own home.
Runs the contract.
So, something like this, where we're looking at maybe like 3-bedroom layout. We got the evidence and input on what we can actually build there, but let's assume we can build like an 1,100, 1,200 square foot.
Real estate tax.
If we can get 3-bedroom layout, you're essentially renting a 3-bedroom home. Not sharing it with anybody, there's nobody above you, nobody below you.
$1,500 VIP ticket.
So in the city, you're gonna get very little.
They do know what they're
Themselves,
talking about.
you can't just go buy a laneway house and invest in that. But they're really good when it comes to taking a property and maximizing.
They're like those when people
So as an example, if you were to purchase a property that has laneway suite potential, if you could build like 1,200 square feet, 12 to 1,400 square feet, that's what you're gonna get your really optimal 3-bedroom, 2-bath layouts. In the right neighborhood,
He's a nice guy.
$4,000 to $4,500. Here, I think we said it was going to be around 1,000 square feet, so probably around a 2-bedroom layout. That's close to like $3,500 in rent. Right? But your question is a good one. Why did you get more in a laneway suite? Essentially, you're living in your own home, right? And the thing is brand spanking new too, right? So yeah, laneway suites, just check out the economics on the laneway suite. I think I told people on our tour, but for the sake of the other tour, 12 to 1,400 square feet. If you can build that from anywhere from $500,000 to $600,000 of build, you already have the land. Maybe you pay a premium on the land. 10%, let's say $150,000. But generally speaking, $500,000 to $600,000 bills, and you get $4,000 in rent, you can't find that anywhere in Toronto.